Yo, what's going on guys, ADATA here, welcome back to another Division video. It is that time of the week again, the vendors have reset, the blueprints have changed in the Dark Zone safe room vendors. So as always, I'm here to tell you guys what is for sale this week and whether or not any of those items are worth purchasing. Now just before I get started though, if you guys have not seen the video from the other day from the most recent state of the game where Massive spoke about the kind of upcoming 1.4 update in October, the delay to survival, and of course also how you guys can help them fix the game, then I will link that down below. But in short, the application to apply to go and visit Massive to try and help them playtest the game, fix it and whatnot is open for this weekend and this weekend only. So check out that video, it's got all the details you need to know. But if you do want to get involved, this is the weekend to make sure your application is in. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's get started. So first up, if we jump into the Dark Zone, DZ02, this is of course where you go to get your gear pieces. Nothing massively exciting this week. Electronics vest, firearms backpack, stamina backpack, and stamina knee pad. So at a push, the electronics vest, but beyond that, there's really nothing worth talking about here. So moving swiftly on to the DZ03 safe room, this is of course where you go to get your weapons. First up, the 229 weapon, the flat weapon, no blueprint, is the SOCOM MK20 SSR. Unfortunately, the skills on this are pretty rubbish this week. You got trained, commanding, and determined, so there's really nothing worth writing home about there. It's DZ rank 90, it's expensive, and the talents are just not worth it. So I'm not even going to waste time talking about this one. Moving over to the MP5 ST blueprint, one of the not quite so good SMGs out there. Of course, you know, MP7 tends to be the choice for PvP, PP19 for PvE, and of course there are some other options, but the ST is the worst model of the MP5. So again, nothing really exciting there, and you also have the Officer's M9A1 sidearm pistol, but truth be told, if it's not an X45, then we're not really that excited because the X45 is actually a genuinely good sidearm, a good pistol. So again, I wouldn't even give this the time of day. So moving swiftly on from there to DZ04, this is where you go to get your gear mods, and this week there is an electronics gear mod and a performance gear mod. So electronics of course is good if that's what you're speccing towards, and you do need a level 32 one. Performance, just, you know, completely ignore it. I actually put up a video the other day on how I personally would fix performance gear mods, so if you guys are interested, then I'll also link that down below. It's just kind of like a fun idea video on, you know, what I would do given the opportunity, but as they exist right now, completely not worth it. So moving over to DZ05, this is where you go to get your weapon mods. You have a CQ BSS scope FDE blueprint, which has headshot damage as the first bonus, and then of course you have one random other bonus, so it's not a bad scope to have. And you also have the quick release magazine, but when it comes to magazines, you know, the one we tend to go towards is the extended magazine, which of course can roll with magazine size and weapon damage, which is a really nice choice to go with. So generally speaking, quick release magazine is not that exciting. So jumping out of the Dark Zone, moving over to the base operations, this week we actually have some potentially interesting items. So starting at the top of the base at the special gear vendor, no, this is not a typo, there are genuinely two different SAS G12s for sale. They're both 204, but the first one has some decent talents, the second one less so. The first one has Unforgiving, Destructive, and Brutal, which is a 2 out of 3 for PvP. Now yes, this is gear score 204, but remember that anytime I recommend 204 or lesser gear score items, it's because we're talking about Alpha Bridge. I know that the M870 is perhaps the favourite shotgun, especially in PvP right now, but if you were to grab a 204 SASG, you could roll out Destructive because of course it has no use in PvP, throw on something else, and you then have a pretty good weapon with some talents that are really nice, and they have low requirements because the gear score is much lower. So Unforgiving and Brutal are your winners there. Destructive is the one you would roll out. But of course, if you jump over to the other one, you have Capable, Fierce, and Restored. Nothing really that exciting, and given that the first one is only 1 Phoenix credit more expensive, then it's a no-brainer. You would only buy the first one and not the second. Then if we jump down into the terminal and take a look at the first vendor. Now this week, this got me kind of excited at first and then equal parts sad, because the MP7 is actually kind of the favourite SMG in PvP. It's a really good weapon, and up until now, you know, there are no blueprints for it, and you basically just have to get really lucky, and it tends to drop in the Dark Zone. So you're somewhat reliant on how it drops and the talents it drops with. This is the first time that we've seen it on sale, and I kind of want to recommend it just because we haven't been able to buy it before, but it's just really not got any good talents. You have Accurate, Restored, and Capable. Now, if it had maybe one good talent, I'd say consider picking it up, roll out another one, and then at least you'd have a 2 out of 3 MP7. But it's so hard to recommend. It's not really hard to manage the recoil on things like an MP7 or SMGs in general. So, you know, stacking things like Accurate and Capable, I just really struggle to recommend. And of course, Restored is just equally not that valuable. So, the only thing I can say about the MP7 is if you want it just because you've never been able to get an MP7, then by all means grab it, maybe roll out Restored just to try and get something good, and then you've got a 1 out of 3 weapon. It's not going to be the best, not by a long shot, but you've got an MP7. Alternatively, if you really are about, the best talents, then you're just going to have to, unfortunately, pass this one by. However, on the flip side, we do also have a First Wave Vector 45 ACP, and this one would only be good with Alpha Bridge sets, but it does come with Stable, Brutal, and Competent, so roll out something like Competent or Stable, get one other talent in there, and of course, at least then you've got a 2 out of 3, which again gives you a couple more nice talents in an Alpha Bridge set. But truth be told, those ones are a little bit of a stretch, so I'm going to pass on from there. Move over to the other guy in the terminal. This week he has Improved Iron Sights 3 for 292 Phoenix credits, and I believe a Performance Gear mod. It's not there for me, but I can, believe it or not, I actually bought a Performance Gear mod the other day just for the video I was making. I can't believe I actually wasted money on that thing. But I bought it, so that's probably the other thing he's got. So finally, moving down to the underground, this week the 229 weapon is an enhanced PP19, so of course the favourite SMG for PvE, and you also have a G36C. Now the enhanced PP19, it's not got the best set of talents. Provident, I'm not really a massive fan of. Fierce is alright, although as I'm sure you guys are very much aware, Fierce does have a pretty high requirement for unlocking in electronics, and if you're spec'd more for firearms or toughness, then chances are you won't meet that requirement. I happen to, because of course the way that I'm spec'd, but generally speaking, it's a bit of a stretch to try and get that, so you might not necessarily benefit from that, and of course you also have Hurried, so you could roll out one of those, you could roll out Provident and maybe make it potentially work, but again, unless you're underground rank 40, it's not something I'd say, you've got to rush and try and level up to make sure you get. And on the other side, you have the G36C, the 204 weapon. This one comes with Adept, Commanding, and Focus, which again is a bit of an odd combination given that Focus promotes non-skill usage and Adept promotes skill usage, so they kind of contradict each other anyway, so you definitely need to roll out one of those. But then also Commanding isn't great, so again, generally speaking, nothing good there. So all in all this week, there hasn't been anything that really stands out as like a you must buy this. There are a couple of stretch things, like for example the SASG if you're running Alpha Bridge, the MP7 if you just really want an MP7, and maybe the Vector if you're running an SMG Alpha Bridge build. But beyond that, there's really nothing that stands out this week. So that's pretty much it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, hopefully you found it helpful, hopefully at least I've been able to kind of warn you off some of those weapons. Again, make sure you check out that video down below because there is some super encouraging news about Division. Of course, it's a lot further in the future because we're talking about October now, but the guys at Massive are making some really good moves to try and sort of improve the game and whatnot, so definitely check out that video if you haven't had a chance. But for the time being, thank you for watching, take it easy, catch you next time, peace out.